If you watch CNN talking about Merrick Garland being subpoenaed in order to gain access to these tapes of Biden talking about his own classified documents and why he had them in boxes wherever he had them. Do you remember when Trump went, my boxes, they were in Mar-a-Lago. His were in a garage. It was disgusting. Let's have a look now at CNN covering this story. And it's very weird to try to discern right from wrong here because the outrage of the anchor is clearly contingent on the target of the ire. There's no objectivity here. For example, if you swap the name Merrick Garland for Steve Bannon, everything will go all wonky. Watch this.
This news just breaking on Capitol Hill. The GOP-led House of Representatives has just voted to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for refusing to hand over audio tapes of Special Counsel Robert Hur's interview with President Joe Biden in his investigation over President Biden's handling of classified documents. The House is in possession of that transcript and has been for a long time. Andrew Weissman, it feels like every day we have a new chapter or a new piece of evidence in the perversion of the rule of law, the opposite of what you just described, Jack Smith.
When she says the perversion of the rule of law, she doesn't mean conflating misdemeanors into felonies or bundling together a whole bunch of various misdemeanors in order to create one, or altering the law specifically, it seems, in order to be able to prosecute Trump, or the jailing of Steve Bannon for something that seems comparable to what's happening here with Merrick Garland, or the fact that Hillary Clinton isn't being prosecuted for the Steele dossier, which would amount to a similar misappropriation of campaign funds for political purposes. Do you see that we need something transcendent? Do you see that we need something else? Do you see that we need to get beyond these institutions and these systems of corruption? Do you see that we need new values? Where are those values going to come from? Let me know in the chat. Look, here's Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, who ultimately is another subpoena denier, but one that will be looking at jail time. He's been sentenced to that, but Steve Bannon is a man who can wear his martyrdom well. Here he is with Tucker Carlson saying, you'll never take me.
I don't bat an eye. It's impossible. They will never break me, ever. And I quite frankly, will be just as proud to serve my nation as a political prisoner in a federal prison for a misdemeanor by Nancy Pelosi as I was to serve my nation on that destroyer.
When he was in the Navy, he's talking about it's a duty of a patriot to go to jail. Donald Trump has said a similar thing. Now, on the left, many of the most popular pundits and political figures are terrified themselves that they'll be jailed. Maddow, I'll be flung in jail. AOC, I'll be flung in jail. Hillary Clinton, she never says stuff like that. She don't want to tempt fate, does she? But what's interesting is while they have their own hysterical concerns about incarceration, they never acknowledge the fact that they, or at least their party, their movement, is utilizing lawfare and the threat of imprisonment and actual criminal convictions with incredible pace and speed. Here's Rachel Maddow, or here's a story of Rachel Maddow saying that the migration camps that she says will be built will ultimately be used for political enemies. But the problem is, we know that when Trump was in office between 2016 and 2020, he didn't jail any of his political opponents. He didn't attempt to pursue Hillary Clinton through the courts. So it's one thing having your audience and your supporters chanting, lock her up, lock her up. And it's another thing to change the law in New York State, bundle together a bunch of misdemeanors and create and concoct an actual criminal conviction on that basis. One thing is words and sounds, and the other thing is the use of law, an objective tool made into a piece of weaponry against political opponents, which if it was happening in another country, you'd think it was crazy. So Rachel Maddow is concerned that she will be jailed if Trump comes to office. We didn't do that last time, but I don't know, for some reason he's going to do it this time because he's going to employ more compliant people. I don't know, let's get into it. Rachel Maddow says she's worried that Donald Trump returning to the presidency could mean she might wind up in camps intended to house illegal immigrants. And I don't want to be around those people. I like sticking up for them on the news, but don't you dare put me in a cell with one. The MSNBC primetime host told CNN on Monday that she was worried about the country broadly if we put someone in power who is openly avowing that he plans to build camps to hold millions of people. Maddow added, for that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? So yes, I'm worried about me, but only so much as I'm worried about all of us, because I'm a compassionate person. You could get into the nitty-gritty of Joe Biden's history around immigration. You could get into Joe Biden mimicking, emulating, and plagiarizing policies when it comes to the border crossing that have come straight out of the Trump playbook. You could pause for a moment to say that the problems that the Democrats and the neoliberal establishment have are all a result of their own moral failings, their own virtual signaling instead of virtuous action. And also, AOC says that she's concerned that she could be thrown in jail. They're all worried about being thrown in jail when the only people that are being thrown in jail are right-wing figures and potentially the president or the former president of the United States himself. Here's AOC threatening that she too will be thrown in jail. I don't think anyone should be thrown in jail unless there are legitimate convictions of criminal wrongdoing, that the law shouldn't be utilized to jail political opponents. I mean, we have a word for that.
What happens to you if Donald Trump wins? What do you do? What's your first move?
I mean, it sounds nuts, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy threw me in jail.
Really?
He's out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did his whole first campaign around lock her up. Like, this is his motto.
A motto is not as bad as a policy and an actual observable tendency to jail your opponents. Bannon, convicted. Trump on continual trial. Hunter Biden used as a kind of makeweight. What about Burisma? What about the tax? What about the money to the big guy? Don't you worry about any of that stuff. Justice is blind. Do we have objective justice or do we have justice as a weapon? And if our institutions that are meant to be representative of the kind of values that would usually be derived from divinity or some kind of connection with God, elsewise, what are ethics? What are morals? What are they based on? Where do they come from? How do you know something's right? Why shouldn't we just fall backwards into nihilism? Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, said the Satanist Aleister Crowley. Law means something because it's meant to be derived from principles that themselves come from God, or at least some sort of objective universal principle. When the law is a weapon, it isn't the law no more. Put that on a t-shirt, baby. Let's see what AOC's biggest concerns are.
I take him at his word. I take him at his word.
It's weird, isn't it? Because language and saying stuff can't be worse than doing stuff.
I take him at his word when he says that he's going to round up people. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. I take him at his word. I feel like what we saw in his first presidency was an amuse-bouche.
If you want to reach a large audience and show that your finger's on the pulse of real America, the phrase amuse-bouche is unlikely to achieve that effect. Amuse-bouche is a phrase for people for whom the term hors d'oeuvre is considered too hillbilly. By supporting our partners, you're supporting our content. Let me ask you a serious question. Do you ever wonder what happened to martial arts legend and film star Chuck Norris? Yes, every day. I spend hours thinking about... Right, well, I've got the answer. Chuck Norris is 81 now. He's still active. He's strong. He's kicking ass. And he still has energy to spend on his beautiful grandchildren. He feels like he's in his 50s. How can this be possible? Chuck's made a video that explains this extraordinary story, and you can watch it by visiting chuckdefense.com/brand. Click the link below to watch this video now. It's going to change the way you think and feel, not only about Chuck Norris, which is invitation enough, but about your own health and about your own ability to age with vitality, vigor, strength, and potency. So go to chuckdefense.com/brand and watch this video now. You're not going to believe how simple it is. Chuck's 81 years old. That's, I mean, for a president of the United States, that's still young, a spring chicken. But for a regular person, that's elderly. This guy's got more energy even than me. And look at me, I can do this. Chuck Norris showed me how to do that. Chuck focused on 3 simple things that sabotage the body as we age. Watch his method. Click the link in the description. chuckdefense.com/brand. This is going to blow your mind and knock your socks off. I want my socks left on. You're going to lose your socks. Let's go back to the content.
To what his intentions are. He has learned from his mistakes of appointing professionals, and he will not make that mistake next time.
Okay, so a lot of people are terrified that they will find themselves on the wrong end of a jail sentence, that the systems of justice will be utilized and deployed to jail political opponents. But you can see that the left are certainly doing that to the right, and the right, I guess having a go themselves, right, when it comes to dear old Merrick Garland and his refusal to respond to subpoena. What kind of principles do we need? Forgiveness, redemption, salvation. What we need is someone to be big enough, strong enough, bold enough, moral enough to deploy some proper principles, some proper values. Otherwise, after the election, in the event that Trump wins, you're just going to have the Democrat Party saying this election was illegitimate, it was Russian interference, he's a maniac, we should jail him, we should turn these institutions against Trump, or vice versa. You're going to need recourse to something bigger than you, something supreme, something divine. And it's taken Dr. Phil to try to bring up the concept of forgiveness and a set of principles that may, in the words of Michael Jackson, who I find myself quoting increasingly frequently, heal the world and make it a better place. Here's Dr. Phil trying to explain to Donald Trump the need for forgiveness and to put aside our weapons and come together in the spirit of love and unity.
Retribution is going to be through success. We're going to make it very successful. We have to bring the country together.
And you can do that. Because let me tell you, this revenge thing, there's a lot of research, and Dr. James Kimmel at Yale has done this research and seen neurologically in the brain that there's an addiction to revenge, just like to opioid or whatever. And that
Trump likes that bit. He likes that there's been some research at Yale. Okay.
Even if people commit a crime and they get arrested for it, they see themselves as the victim and they want revenge against the person that arrested them. And then the person that arrested them gets hammered. So now that person says, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with that. So they go back after the criminal. Now the criminal has been victimized again. And so we get into this loop where we're addicted to it back and forth. It's got to stop. And we're better than this. We must.
Dr. Phil, they're trying to coax Trump down a line of, look, what we can have here is forgiveness. In the event of a Trump victory, we can build a better America. We can put aside vengeance. We can reach for the higher ground.
Be better than this, and you're big enough to do it. Every situation needs a hero. You can stop this. You can say,
well,
no,
I think
he's not having it, is he? He's not having it. That's the first sign that Trump don't like Dr. Phil's forgiveness plan.
It ends here. It ends with me.
I think you'll be proud of the job we do. And, the word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. But that's what I'd like to see. I want to see the country survive, because this country is not going to survive like this. And really, the expression, I think it's the greatest theme ever in politics, maybe, because it's the biggest movement. We want to make America great again, and that's what we have.
A lot of people asking, how is a criminal a victim? A criminal can be a victim of social circumstances. Think about times you've done stuff wrong in your own life. Indeed, forgiveness, we all need forgiveness. We all need it. In the end, we are all going to have to ask for forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves, for elsewise we are claiming that we are a higher tribunal than the one that has forgiven us. We are not in a position to condemn and judge anybody else, because were we to be evaluated on the basis of sin, then we would all be condemned. What Dr. Phil, I feel, is urging is recourse to higher principles, higher values. If your society and your culture is not built upon divine principle, then it is ultimately going to be resource-driven. It's ultimately going to become about power. But don't take my word for that. Look at the world. Look at the news. Apparently, objective institutions have been weaponized because we are incapable, without some access to the divine, to keep guard of higher principles. So, extraordinary though it may seem to say it, I love what Dr. Phil's doing here. He's talking to Trump about turn the other cheek, transcend, use higher values. But Trump is very much in the game of political lawfare and warfare because, hey, that dude is been convicted of felonies, which perhaps he would not have been convicted of were his name not Donald Trump. He ain't coming down the old Dr. Phil path of Christianity just yet.
To do, and I think you'll be very proud of the job we do.
The Pope has a book out that he's written.
The Pope then? How about the Pope?
And he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. Otherwise, what will follow
I like when Trump sits up. He's going to think about that.
Is not justice, but revenge. And that's true even in the cultural wars that we're fighting here. I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time. I will
Well, revenge is quite good sometimes.
say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. You
No.
know,
Justified. Come on, Phil.
sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done, and I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers. When you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few days ago. Numbers that nobody's ever heard of in politics before. It's a great honor. The people of our country get it. You know, they're very smart. Taken as a whole, I have to say, they're very smart. But it's been an honor being with you. It really has. And I think you'd be very proud of the job we do.
I don't like this revenge stuff and not having revenge, but it's been an honor. You're going to be proud. It's going to be okay. What we're talking about today is the possibility for real justice. Where would justice be derived from? What principles would you have to have? By what laws would you yourself have to abide to have true justice rather than the weaponization of institutions? Remember, we've already seen the full corruption of the legacy media. We've already seen authorities that claim to care about us being used to control us. That's what corporate globalism is, a claim to be the kind of authority that belongs only to God. And God is something that we all have access to, but I would say that there seem to be a set of moral and ethical principles that all of us intuitively and viscerally understand. Justice, kindness, service, forgiveness, and love. And without those principles and without recourse to them, we're in serious trouble. But that's just what I think and what Dr. Phil thinks. Let me know what you think in the comments and the chat.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.